Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dribble podcast in what has been a momentous week in the life of Rockingham's finest, Luke Travers. My name is Craig O'Donoghue from the West Australian newspaper, and every week I bring you all the news for what's happening in basketball in WA. And on Saturday morning, the big news was that Luke Travers had become an NBA player. So in this episode, we will unpack Travers' remarkable story, and joining me to go through all of that is the Perth Wildcats General Manager of Basketball Operations, Danny Mills. Danny, welcome back to the Dribble podcast.
Thanks, Craig. Always good to be here with you.
Where were you on Saturday morning when this happened?
Banks inside, it gets denied by Travers on the block. Darryl zips one inside to Travers, and Travers throws it down.
My goodness.
So 9:30 a.m., what were you doing?
Yeah, it was obviously a good morning. We played well the night before, so that was always waking up after a win is always good. And then obviously had NBA on. Actually, was going through a number of different games, and to see Luke was on the active roster, and then to see him get his first minutes was pretty special. Unique story, unique path to get to where he's at, and it's exciting for him and his family.
So what's been the key, do you feel, to his success and the ability to go over there now and slot straight into that team?
Yeah, I mean, I think Luke's unique ability and skill has always been he's just a Swiss Army knife. He's got a lot of different things that he can do on the basketball court at a high level, and to see him go from even before I came to the Perth Wildcats, he was obviously a intriguing prospect. And then to become a starter with us under Scott, play under John after he'd been drafted in his stash year from Cleveland with us for that year, and then to see his season last year with Melbourne, and then to finally get that chance after I think 3 summer leagues and sign a 2-way contract with Cleveland. I think it's a credit to him, his work ethic, the talent, the ability, the potential has always been there, but it's just the opportunity, and he's clearly that's been presented to him, and he's taking it with both hands at the moment.
So playing your first game is a unique experience, and it brings joy to so many people. I've loved the reactions from people, so let's go through a few of them. This is what Donovan Mitchell had to say about him post-game.
That was great. He has a great feel for the game. You see him, the passes he's making, understanding, all right, he gets the ball in the wing, let's come up, pitch it uphill, trying to set a screen and roll, doing little things like as a rookie, you don't necessarily always see. So it's great to see that, and, he's going to be a good player. Just continue to figure it out and get better. But it's great to see that in his first opportunity to get out there, not only score but also impact the game in a lot of different ways.
And then we go to his mum, Sam, who was at work when it all went down.
I on his on, ecstatic excitement, what was throwing herself away, and just sat there and yelled at my face.
And finally, his former coach at Rockingham and current Perth Lynx coach, Ryan Petrick.
So good to see him out there. So good. I know he's wanted it for a while. In the off-season, I'm down at Rockingham a fair bit, and he's down there shooting around all the time still. Super happy for the kid. Hope he kills it. He was always going somewhere, even when he got to coach him as a 17-year-old or whatever it was in NBL 1. He's a genuine star. So
there you got an established player who knows what it's like to be a kid coming through. His mum, who's obviously just followed every step of his way from the moment he was born, and then a coach. It takes a village to get people somewhere. It's a special moment with so many people touched, isn't it?
It really is. His journey is remarkable. I mean, he was obviously an elite junior. Went to the COE, the AIS in Canberra, and that didn't work out for him. He wanted to come home. He's always been quite a homebody, Luke, and took on a pathway that is different to others. It's becoming more, I guess, mainstream now with staying at home in the NBL as opposed to going to college for a lot of kids. And Luke took that on. He was a development player for a number of years and made his way onto the Wildcats roster pretty young. And then, has gotten drafted. And even when he got drafted, it wasn't like he was going straight to the NBA. It took another 2 years and 3 summer leagues to actually realize his dream. And it's a credit because there's not many guys that get drafted in the 50s that actually ever step on an NBA floor. Your rights are held, but you never get that opportunity. And for Luke to be this young and actually playing in NBA games is one. It's special, but it's also a testament to him, his work ethic, and obviously all of the time he's put into it, but the time that others have put into him.
So you were overseas when he working in the NBA system when he initially joined the Wildcats. How aware of him were you at that point? Given you were doing all these other things. When did he come across your radar, I suppose, would be the best way of asking it.
Yeah, it's probably when he made the under-17 national team. I think their World Cup might have been in Argentina. Probably mid-2010s. 2015, 2016 is probably when that his name. So when guys make those national teams, they're playing a junior World Cup. Probably when you get noticed by NBA teams, they start. Obviously, they're at the events, they're watching film, and they're creating lists of future draft prospects for those classes. I was like him, and I think Luke Jackson was on that team. And then obviously you track them. Me being from Perth and WA, this was one of my regions that I was responsible for as a scout with Philly, and so every time I would come back to Perth, I would obviously talk to a lot of people. Spoke to Adam Capon a lot, who's obviously now at the Wizards, but at that time was at the COE and had him. And you just touch base with a lot of people at the Wildcats, and just kind of keep a track of where their progress is going. And then obviously when I came back and took this role with the Wildcats, it was exciting that he was on the roster, and you could see just the potential he had, and the feel and IQ was something that was just natural. It's not something you can really teach, and he had that already at a young age, and had positional size and athleticism, and obviously the skill and all of that has kind of been developed over the last few years to get him to where he's at.
So there's a big difference between having the potential and actually being able to make it. And you hear so many stories about it across all sports. Oh, he's going to make it. He'll be really good. And not many do. It's so damn hard. Like, what's the difference between having potential and being able to take that next step? What do you need to have?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. From a young age, you look at all these phenoms in sport, in any sport, and a lot of kids show potential, have potential, but to actually, I guess, take advantage of that potential is just a different thing. And not everyone can do it. Not everyone has the drive, the passion, the love. Because it takes hours of unseen work to actually get to where you want to get to. Now, Luke's within the top 450 players in the world in the NBA. When you think about basketball as the second most popular global sport, and Luke's playing at that level at, he must be 24, turning 25?
23, yeah.
23, 24. Like, it's an incredible thing for a kid from Rockingham that he's got there this quick. Now, the hard part is to stick there. Like, he's on a two-way contract. He's getting minutes right now in a rotation. But, I would imagine going forward on a team like Cleveland, who's already having some success, and you would anticipate they're going to be a pretty good team in the Eastern Conference, that as the season wears on, if they're healthy, he'll probably be in the G League a lot, and he'll be going up and down, which will be good for him because he'll be able to play major minutes and be impactful at that level, and then be called upon when they need him with the main club up in Cleveland.
So Ryan Petrick mentioned there that he often saw him at Rockingham just shooting around, doing what he has to do. And the number of times during the footy season, early in the footy season this year, I'll be down at Fremantle, who have at Coburn, this court's there, and Luke's just shooting and by himself. Future NBA player just shooting by himself at 9 o'clock in the morning on one of those courts. Like, that's stuff that no one else sees, where it's just work, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's his drive and passion. And I mean, it's not surprising that he was doing that. He's a very unassuming character, Luke. He's very low key. I think he had a real inner confidence, but probably, and I think he would say this, quite an introverted person, and is coming out of his shell, and will have to do that in the NBA level. Like, the level of attention he will be getting now, and already is getting, both with Cleveland and then with the G League program. Like, it's a different level to, especially where it was here in Perth and in Melbourne. So for him, it's a good learning experience, and he's got all the tools. He's going to have opportunities, and it's just about taking them when he gets presented, and hopefully being able to stick at that level.
And then you look south to Rockingham, and we go north to Geraldton, and Alex Ducas is playing for OKC as well. Like, for this state to have two guys debut, on top of Alex Sarr, who we'll talk about a bit later, but to actually have blokes who are born here going over and doing it, what does it do for this state in terms of showing the kids what's possible? Yeah,
I think WA's always batted above its average in sport, and especially basketball. I think it is probably not talked about a lot, as much as it should. You talk about the players out of Melbourne that have been number one draft picks: Andrew Bogut, Ben Simmons, Dante Exum was number 5. Kyrie Irving, if you want to claim him as Melbourne, he was born there, but he was number one pick as well. And then you go to the Sydney and Queensland, and the population there compared to us. We've produced multiple players, going back to Luke Longley, first ever, and then coaches as well. And we talked about Adam Capon before, and obviously myself, I've had experience obviously in the NBA for 7 years. But you go back and, to go back to Alex, like, amazing story. Like, same thing as Luke, very credentialed junior, obviously went to the AIS, went to St. Mary's, which has had a pipeline of Australians for decades now, and had a very, very strong college career there. And Yeah, I think has found himself in an amazing organization. I mean, OKC's probably a favorite to win the Western Conference this year. They've got a plethora of just young talent that they're developing, and for him to be in that program, you couldn't pick a better NBA organization for him to be in and to be on a two-way there. One of 4 two-way players. I would imagine he'll be spending a lot of time in the G League, but for him, that's exactly what he needs. That's the next step to getting on an NBA roster. And again, he's a different player to Luke. He's got good positional size. He can make threes, and he's a strong body. And if he can defend it well enough at that level, and he can make enough threes, I mean, teams are always looking for 6-7 guys that can knock down shots.
So you and I were chatting at training the other day about Dylan Windler and just how long he is. And length is everything for the sport, and wingspan, especially if you're not born long, if you don't have long arms, and you're just not long in general, is it harder now than ever to actually get an opportunity? Because these guys, Ducas is 201 centimetres with a 208 centimetre wingspan. Luke is 203 with a 210 centimetre wingspan. I'm 172 with a 170 wingspan, so I'm no chance either in height or in length. But do you need that? If you're not born the right way, though, are you stuffed from the start?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not genetically gifted, basketball's probably not the right sport for you. You might want to do something else. It is, and again, we go back to the numbers, right? You're just talking a numbers game. It's 450 guys who are on a roster in the NBA, 15 over 30 teams, and then you've got these other two-way contracts now that's another 4 per team, which is another 120 guys in the league. But, I mean, you're talking across the world, professional basketball, how many guys play, let alone other levels, and you're talking about making that level from not just genetically being gifted, but also from an isolated city like Perth, Australia. The odds are stacked heavily against you. So for these young guys to be debuting this year is incredible. It's a testament to them, their families, the pathways they've come through here. We do have fantastic pathways for players to develop in Perth and in WA, and it feeds into the Australian system, which has had a lot of success over the last probably 3-4 decades of producing players. But it's extremely difficult.
And when you look at the pathway, you just mentioned there how good it is here at the moment. It used to be you had to go overseas, you had to figure out college, and then hope to get noticed. Whereas Luke's a bona fide homegrown product. You said didn't work out from the Centre of Excellence, didn't go to college, went from DP to main roster, drafted, then stays here, then moves to Melbourne, and now goes on the two-way deal. Does it feel like now, regardless of what path you want to take, you can choose what suits you rather than what used to suit the competition or the sport itself?
Yeah, look, the choices young players have today have never been better, for sure. There's multiple different pathways you can go down. There's so many different options for you to develop. And it's just about making the right ones that are for you. And the Australian pathway and the NBL might not be for everyone. College might be not for everyone. NBL 1's becoming a pretty relevant league now in the off-season here. But every player is different. Every player needs something that's more unique to probably their path. And some players develop earlier and are dominant at under 16, under 18, under 20 national championships and can carry that on. Others are late growers, late developers, usually physically. So you find a lot of players that physically might not be mature until they're 19 or 20 and, have maybe not struggled, but haven't been the actual standouts at the under 16, under 18 level. But by the time they're 20, 21, they've continued to grow, they've continued to mature and grow into their bodies, and their skill sets have caught up to their athletic ability. And that's when they kind of blossom. I mean, that 100% happened with Andrew Bogut back in the day when he came in. I was at the AIS in 2002, and he came in as a 6'9" guy that never made a Victoria Metro State team, let alone an Australian team. And within 3 years, he was number 1 pick in the NBA draft. So, that happened very quick. That's a unique case, but I think it's proof of concept that, everyone's different and everyone has a different path. But there are multiple avenues now to get to that ultimate goal, which everyone's, as a young elite player, everyone's dream is to play in the NBA.
So Luke knew in himself that he wasn't ready to move overseas. It took him a while to even want to move into state and stuff. So it would not have worked out for him, and he was smart enough to figure that out for himself. But you then got to find a program that will help you. What are you guys doing, do you feel, that allows players to develop, and what have you got around them to make sure that they can be the best they can possibly be without having to travel?
Yeah, I think we've set up an environment with the Wildcats under John and his staff. We've got amazing assistants. We've got incredible high performance in Dan Webster, Josh Kavanagh, and their support staff, that when players want to come in, the way we recruit them is there's no guarantees or promises. There's no role or minute guarantees. It's you can come into a program and the opportunity will be there for you. That'll be supported by staff and resourcing around the program. But it's up to you to take that opportunity. You know, it's 50% the club, but it's more than half is on the player. And if they're not motivated enough to take advantage of all of the things that we offer them, then it might not work out for them. And again, as we talked about, potential is only one thing, but the ability to get the most of your potential is what gets you to the next level. And we feel like with our program, the experience with our staff, the players that we have in it, you can come in and it's a culture of development, but also winning and standards. And you know, you practice at a high level and then you play in an elite game night environment at RSC Arena. And I've been fortunate to travel around the world and scout basketball in all four corners of the globe: NBA, college, Europe, South America, Asia. The NBL, where it's at right now in terms of the quality of the basketball and just the game presentation and the environment that you play in the RAC Arena, no doubt in my mind it's one of the best environments that a young player could come into to develop and get himself to the highest level, which is obviously the NBA.
And what about identifying the one thing in their game that they need to improve upon that will take them from potential to being noticed? So for Luke, it was the threes, which was obvious. He was battling from three-point range, and then he just worked with Mike Kelly day in, day out, and had a sensational back half of the year. If you look at last year with Alex Sarr, he just developed further and further as that year went. Obviously, honing in on something that he'd been told, you need to work on this to get yourself higher ranked. Do you speak to the NBA clubs to know what they want to see and then focus in on them, or do you already look at it and go, I reckon we know what they're looking for?
Yeah, someone like Alex is an interesting case study. He came in, the athletic physical gifts that he had, which we've talked about, that was genetically given. If you've met Masai and Maria's parents, I mean, you know where he got his height from, and his brother. And so that was, I mean, he's already ahead of the eight ball in terms of that. So he came in 7'1", 7'5" wingspan. That's going to put you on every NBA team's radar from day dot. And then it was his defensive ability, his presence, his ability to alter shots around the basket, protect the rim, and just really cover space at 7'1". It's just not normal. And that's what obviously put him on the radar. And then obviously, you know, the offensive flashes that we saw last year were elite enough where it got him to a number 2 pick, which is amazing for him and us. And his upside is probably endless to what he could to what he could become. It's different for every other prospect. I mean, Luke was different to that. Like you talked about, you know, he's kind of had the ability to impact the game in many ways, but probably wasn't elite in any. And that's what NBA teams look for. Like, if you're a player like Luke or Alex Ducas, you have to be a specialist in something to get you on a court, because you're not going to be the number 1, number 2, number 3, or even maybe not even number 4 option when you're on the floor at the NBA level. You got to complement those other players as a connecting piece and be able to play within the flow of an offense. And the biggest thing is being able to impact the game defensively and on the glass to able to get yourself on the floor, so you're not a liability. And then what can you provide us offensively? So the actual defense when you're playing, the defense can't just, you know, focus on other players because you can't make a 3 or you're actually not a factor on that end. So there's multiple things that go into it, and every player is different. But teams usually, when they're drafting, they're looking for positional size, length, athleticism, stuff you can't teach, because they feel that once they get you in their development program, they can teach you some skill. They can teach you, you know, you can always improve your shooting and other aspects of the game. But these other things that they can't teach, like, if you don't have them, it's going to be pretty hard to make it at that level.
And when we look at what Luke did the other day, like, he was just busy from the moment he got on court. 4 minutes, but he was just busy and involved in everything. And that's what we've always seen from him. The first state league stats I can find from him was when he was 16 years old. He had 12 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal and 2 blocks. And you go, that's the Luke Travers sort of game. And then you go to his NBL debut and he played for 11 minutes and finished with 3 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds. Busy again. His first start in the NBL, it was 4 points, 7 rebounds, 1 block, 1 steal. His first playoff game, 12 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. First NBA Summer League game, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 4 blocks. Same for his debut against for Melbourne United, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. So he knows what his own game is. You have to know that. Is that the most important thing in your own mind? Don't try to be what you aren't. be what you're really good at. And in his case, it was everything. Just do all those little things really, really well.
No, exactly. That's an interesting comparison over the course of his career at different levels, because that's exactly what he did. He does impact the game, not at an elite level in one category, but across the board. He was very impactful and usually led to winning plays. And so that's definitely what he did for us as a young player in the year he got drafted, and then that second year. And no doubt, like, he's got the size, the athleticism to do those things, especially defensively. Very unique player, always a high-level rebounder for a wing. And then his ability to see the floor and make passes at 6'8" is pretty unique. And so there was always something special there with him. And, hopefully that continues as the level gets harder, as the defense gets smarter, as spaces get smaller. Like, if he can continue to find those avenues to be impactful, then, there's all the chance in the world that he can stick.
And he can certainly make some plays that get everyone excited a lot of the time, as we saw from when he was here.
Now Travers all the way. Oh, my.
Oh, my goodness.
Remember the name, ladies and gentlemen. Luke Travers is having a series to remember.
It was great commentary by Jack Everin back when that went in those days. We mentioned Ducas as well. Followed a different path also. Had 5 years at St Mary's, whereas Kyle Bowen, who was playing at the time, comes back and plays for Melbourne United. So that's another example, isn't it, of knowing what you need to be able to get there in the end, and not saying, well, I have to keep up with the Joneses.
Exactly. Yeah. No, Alex, probably more traditional because he went to college in terms of, like, a lot of players have gone that way. A little untraditional that he stayed for 5 years. He could have come out a year early for sure. Every NBL club would have loved to have gotten his signature and had him come play in the NBL, including us. But he stuck it out. And he's earned his way into a 2-way contract with OKC, and now the opportunity for him is to stick at that level and find a role that is going to allow him to stay at the NBA level. Because as much as you get a 2-way contract or you get drafted, the teams now are focused on the next draft class, and there's another 60 guys coming in behind you that they're wanting to look at. They're going to evaluate against you, especially if you're on a 2-way. It's a very dispensable contract, unfortunately. It's not guaranteed. And as much as they will invite you and it'd be exciting to get into the NBA, it's just as quick as you'll be out of the NBA and you'll be back into international basketball. So it's a ruthless business, but that's why it's the elite of the elite, and that's why it's the NBA, and that's why all these guys make a lot of money.
So we're talking on Tuesday, and as Alex Sard has had his first NBA double-double. He had that followed 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 blocks against Miami over the weekend. Feels like he's settling into it really well at the moment.
It does. It's been awesome to watch, obviously, his preseason games and then watch the start of the NBA season with Alex. And, there's been ups and downs, as you would expect. He's still a young 19-year-old trying to find his way in the best league in the world. But now he's showing sustained, not just glimpses, but sustained periods of being impactful. And I think it starts on the defensive end. I mean, great to see that he's getting a double-double, meaning double-digit in rebounds, which is probably an area that he needs to focus on the most at his position. But the 4 blocks against, I think it was Miami and Mexico City, the 3 blocks today against Golden State, like, that's something he did with us. I think he led the league in block percentage last year, the NBL, as an 18-year-old. And he just has a unique ability to go and impact the game at that end of the floor. And that's something that'll keep you an NBA player for a long, long time and make you a lot of money, regardless of what he can do offensively. And we already know there's flashes of things that he can do. And if he can continue to develop his outside shot, which we saw last year a little bit, it's not as consistent yet, but if he can become a 7'1" stretch big that can make threes and then protect the rim, those guys are invaluable, and he'll be making lots of money because of it.
And another one who followed his own path, went all around the world, went to the US and comes back here, now back at the US again after starting in France. And we've now got Ben Henschel and Ethan Almanza with you guys, who are living different lives yet again and doing different things, but doing what's required to get themselves noticed. Talk to us a bit about what you're seeing from Ben and Ethan this year, especially Ben the other night, which was just fantastic.
Yeah, Ben's so exciting. I mean, he's a guy, obviously, we targeted a few years ago, and we were thrilled when we got his signature to commit to Perth, and obviously a Perth local, Coburn Jr. I think he went to Willerton High School. His path has been, to the COE junior national teams with Australia, and didn't want to go to college. And luckily for us, that was to our advantage. We got him in our system, and it was a learning experience for him last year, as for all 18, 19-year-olds. It's a big step. I mean, you're talking the NBL. People don't realize the gap between the NBL 1 and the NBL. And, Ben was playing predominantly NBL 1 with the COE over East in the NBL 1 East competition over there. And, there were flashes. He had that one, I think it was our second game of the season, where we had an injury to Ty, I think, and he stepped in and had 24 points, and that was exciting. But then, as the season goes along, it's hard to crack a rotation as a 19-year-old, and it really is. And you just got to bide your time. It's like an apprenticeship, and he did that. To his credit, he did that. He put in the work daily, and then he took our advice. He went with our minor league program over in Otago with the Nuggets in the New Zealand NBL and played really well. And there were areas of emphasis, especially defensively, that we wanted him to work on, and he's done that. He's gotten stronger physically, and that's just a natural maturation process for him. He's going to continue to do that. But he really honed in on his defensive on-ball ability. And then offensively, the talent that he is, we all know, we've all seen that. And what he's doing now is might be surprising to some, but it's not to us. Like, he's always had that offensive firepower, and that's what's probably going to give him a chance to play at that next level, whether it's in the NBA, whether it's with the Australian Boomers at an Olympic Games or a World Cup. But it's just got to be consistent. You have the one game on Friday, and then we go on the road, and the team didn't perform to what we wanted, but it's tough. It's tough to back up again as a 19-year-old when you score 26 points at home against the top team in the league, to then go on a plane and back that up less than 40 hours later against a hungry Southeast Melbourne Phoenix team. And that's just being a professional and learning. But what he's done so early this season is what we wanted and expected. But he's actually gone and done it, and that's another thing. And it's really exciting that he's doing that, and it shows you the depth of our roster.
You mentioned he looks like he's a different looking person this year as well. Like last year when he came in, he was obviously a kid in a man's world. Like, you just looked at his body and went, you look so different to Ty, and you look so different to Bryce. This year he still looks different, but he looks a lot more like a man than what he did last year. He's got rid of the puppy fat. He's a lot stronger. He's got more definition about him. It takes a lot of work to get your body into professional standards, doesn't it? Like, you can spend as much time in the gym as you want. It takes a long time to get strong.
No, it does, and part of it's again, it's a natural process of him just becoming a 20-year-old man, 21, 22, and that'll continue. But it's also the other half is him putting in work, and he does. There's a clear love, passion for the game, which I guess drives his work ethic, and he's one of our hardest workers. He comes in the gym. He's always shooting. And there's always been this inner confidence with Ben. Like, even when things aren't going well, he's always had this confidence in his offensive game that he's better than the guy guarding him. And that's needed, especially to get to that next level, because, he's always been a very unique talent. Doesn't have all the physical tools like we talked about with maybe Luke Travers or obviously Alex. But he's got the skill level and the confidence and the shot-making ability and the want to take that shot. Like, there's a difference between being able to make shots and wanting to have the ball in that pressure situation. And that Ben doesn't lack confidence, and that's massive for a kid his age, and obviously will help him get to where he wants to go. And
Ethan clearly has the athletic height and length and everything else you could ever want, and the guts to move overseas and do what he's doing at the moment at his age, to have a crack at doing what's required.
Yeah, Ethan's path, similar to Alex's a little bit. I mean, incredible that those guys played 4 years together as juniors, and they've now both back-to-back years have been Perth Wildcats. And for us, again, we talk about the program and where it's going and where we want it to be. That's a big drawing card for us, is that these elite overseas talents, not even from Australia, they're from France and Spain, arguably top 4 countries in the world in basketball, are choosing Australia, the NBL, but specifically the Perth Wildcats to develop their talent to get them to the NBA. Ethan, yeah, we've talked about it. He went from Murcia, Spain, to Real Madrid juniors, to Overtime Elite, which is a high school program in Atlanta. And then he went to the G League Ignite program last year, and now he's chosen Perth before he declares for the draft again this year. And no doubt he's got obviously physically gifted, but he's so skilled, and he's probably arguably the most credentialed junior player ever in FIBA. Globally, not just FIBA Europe, but globally. He's won 2 MVPs of under 17, under 19 World Cups. He's got a lot of experience at a young age. And, the last year for him has been a bit of a roller coaster, going to the Ignite. It's funny that we played them in that preseason series, and him and Alex faced off against each other after being teammates. And then obviously, transitioned, put his name in the draft, didn't declare at the end of the day, chose us to come to Perth. And now we're working with him to get him to his dream, which is obviously the NBA draft for 25. But again, an incredibly gifted player, very smart, high IQ, elite work ethic. Like, this is a kid that just breathes basketball, loves the game, and I think is starting to realize the level of the NBL. Obviously, it's high. And this is a good situation for him to, there's some adversity. I mean, we're 4-5. We're not where we want to be as a team just yet. But I think there's a real sense of inner confidence, both from staff, both from Ethan, that like things will eventually get to the point where he's going to be impacting games to where we think where we know he can be.
Mention you're not where you would like to be at the moment. It's a crazy league at the moment. Teams are getting flogged left, right, and centre. Like, can you get your head around the 20-plus point margins that are going on right now?
Not really, to be honest. Such an interesting league, and it's been this way since the last 3 seasons. It's always been a tight standings up until talk about 2 years ago when we had to beat Sydney by a point spread just to make the play-in was just absolutely crazy to where we're at today. And again, like we just beat arguably the 2 informed teams of the year. Besides Melbourne, it was Sydney and Illawarra. Beat them at home without 2 starters. And then we go on the road and lose to Southeast. And then, you look at the Melbourne-New Zealand matchup last night, and in my mind, I mean, New Zealand's travelling into Melbourne. They've been sitting there all weekend fresh, thinking, it's a tough place to play. Melbourne has good crowds, especially before Cup Day. And they just get absolutely obliterated by a New Zealand team that's playing very well, but against a Melbourne team that's probably the clear favourite for Defensive Team of the Year. I can't. Honestly, you can't. I mean, it's early and that happens, but the NBL is a unique league in that sense, and it's 10 teams, but it's 10 deep. There are no off nights. You look at where Cairns is at the moment. I think they've lost. They started the season really strongly, 3-1. They've lost 6 in a row now, but they've also been decimated by injuries. We've got 4 games. So the next 2 weekends before the FIBA break are back to back. So it's a Thursday Tassie into a Melbourne Saturday, back for a Friday Southeast into a Brisbane Sunday. Like, it's just, there's no off nights, there's no off days. I think we're looking at these next 4 games as a barometer, and then we get into a FIBA break where you can kind of reset and evaluate where the first part of the season went and then kind of move forward. But it really is, it's going to come down to that last game day again for sure to determine final standings.
You'd be unlikely to get Bryce back before that FIBA break now. Wouldn't you? Would that be right? You wouldn't risk him, but given that that there's that extra 10 or 12 days in between?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things up in the air with that. It truly is, I mean, round to round, or I guess week to week. You can call it whatever you want. But yeah, it's really a unique situation with him and the type of injury, and really it's on his timeline of where he feels comfortable with it. But obviously, he's a very important piece to the puzzle, and whatever time he needs to get back to 100%, that's exactly what we're going to do.
A couple of other names from around the world who've just started playing in at the moment. Alex Condon at Florida, WA boy, 13 points and 5 rebounds this morning after getting into foul trouble. Harry Wessels didn't get a lot of opportunities at St Mary's. He had 2 points and 2 rebounds. Another WA bloke, Jaden Stone, who's transferred to West Virginia, is injured at the moment and did not get to play. So he's got some challenges to get himself right. In terms of other WA basketball things, the Lynx host Townsville Fire on Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. and then are away to Adelaide at 5 p.m. on Saturday. You were there the other night. What'd you make of their first game?
It was awesome. Great game night atmosphere. I had my 3 kids there, and they absolutely loved mauling the mascot.
They ran amok.
Yeah, I don't know if it's. I mean, they kept calling it Wilbur. I don't think it's Wilbur the Lynx, but whatever.
No, it's Layla the Lynx.
Layla the Lynx. There you go. I'll have to tell them that tonight. They loved it. Awesome game night. The girls played amazing. Just the shot making. I mean, unbelievable. And to win that game by that spread without Amy Atwell, very impressive. And so clearly Ryan and Sam have built that roster very, very well. And no doubt they're going to be in very, I think, playoff contention again. And just the brand of basketball they play, it's an exciting game.
And Amy Atwell will miss both games this week with a knee injury as well. So it is the Wildcats versus Tassie on Thursday night at RSC Arena, 6:30 p.m. for Indigenous Round. Really important moment for the club with the uniform that you're going to wear as well.
Yeah, we love Indigenous Round. Obviously celebrating. Obviously Keanu's a major part of our program, and I know this is a round that he takes immense pride in. And for us as a club, we're all inclusive, and this is an important round for us. And to host Tasmania, it's a rematch. Last year we played them away, had a overtime loss to them, but for them to come back in the last time they played in RAC against us was game 3 of that semis, which still hurts a bit. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting game. They're going to come in very hungry. Again, we've talked about the NBL being crazy. Like, would not have predicted where they're at the moment. But they're an extremely well coached team, fundamental, and no doubt it's going to be a really hard game for us. But one, that hopefully our guys are up for, because we fly Friday, we're back in Melbourne again, and we've got a marquee game against Melbourne United Saturday night, which will be an awesome atmosphere, I'm sure, at John Cain Arena. So exciting Thursday night.
Well, it's an exciting time for basketball in the state in general. As I said, Travers, Ducas, Saar, all in the NBA. You guys have done so well to help 2 of those guys, and WA basketball's done so well to help Alex Ducas get to where he is as well. So I'm sure everyone over here at the moment has been watching the NBA and getting really happy to see what's happening over there with all these guys. So thanks for coming in and giving us your experience and telling people about how hard it is to get there and what actually requires. So thanks for coming in.
No worries, Craig. Appreciate your support.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Dribble Podcast. Remember, you can read all of your basketball news in the West Australian newspaper and at thewest.com.au. Thank you to Danny Mills for coming in today. Thank you for Josh Cable for his production work. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Dribble Podcast.